Hey, what's going on, everybody? So, if you don't know by now, Jocelyn Savage has come out and she's denounced the Patreon account that's been created in her image. Now, this is the video in which she talks about the bogus Patreon account. And this video is about the potential claims that Jocelyn Savage can file against Patreon, right? And I think if she goes out, she gets a lawyer, and she files these claims, I think she has a really good, strong chance of winning, a really strong chance of winning, right? So let's actually run through them really quickly. One of the first claims that she has against Patreon, or a claim that she could potentially file against Patreon, is an invasion of privacy. So, in my opinion, Jocelyn Savage is a private person. You may not think this because you've seen her in some of the videos coming from, going to and from the R. Kelly trial, and you've probably seen videos of her walking down the street. But for the most part, besides this video, this is the first video where I have actually seen Jocelyn Savage put herself in the public's eye. So I think all the videos that you've seen thus far is other people invading her privacy. So the argument could be made that just because people took videos of me going to and fro the R. Kelly trial, invading my privacy does not give other people the right to continue to invade my privacy. So I think that could be a valid claim against Patreon. Of course, Patreon is liable, in my opinion, because they allowed the account to be created. Another potential claim that Jocelyn Savage has against Patreon is defamation of character. The imposter or impersonator, however you want to call them, whoever created that account, they made a lot of claims, right? So they basically said that, if I can remember correctly, they said that she was forced to have an abortion, she was peed on, and she was treated poorly. She was beaten because she didn't call R. Kelly daddy. Now, those are some serious claims, and it not only makes R. Kelly look bad, but it would also make Jocelyn Savage look bad because she basically, in this allegation, or in this scenario, she would have allowed R. Kelly to do this when she could easily go to the police, or she could easily sue R. Kelly. So it kind of makes make her look bad because you're alleging that she let R. Kelly pee on her, right? So I think a defamation of character claim is definitely warranted if those allegations aren't true. Now, conversely, if the allegations are true, right? If the allegations are true, then she could have a claim for false light. She could come out and say, yeah, well, that stuff is true, but that's my own personal business. And you put my personal business out there. And not only did you put it out there, you put it out there in the most negative way possible, right? So false light is a claim similar to defamation of character, but is separate in the sense that it allows a person to make the claim of someone putting a negative image on them, or causing people to have a negative view, or a view of them in false light, and it caused some type of emotional distress. It's not really necessarily about whether the information is true or false. It's more about you putting that information out there, and it basically portrays that person in a negative light or a false light. So another potential claim that Jocelyn Savage can have against Patreon is appropriation. Now, I believe that Patreon knew, or should have known, that the person who created the account was likely an imposter because they never provided any information. As a matter of fact, I think Patreon had a responsibility to ensure that person was who they said they were before they allowed them to create the account. I think it's perfectly fine if you want to create an account and talk about cats, that you don't have to give up your personal information. You don't have to prove your identity. If you want to create an account and you want to talk about video games, then no, you shouldn't necessarily have to give up your own identity unless you want to give it up. But when you are claiming to be a particular person, I think you, I think Patreon is responsible for verifying that person's identity. And because they didn't verify the person's identity, it basically caused Jocelyn Savage some emotional distress. And that's anybody who would hear this case probably would reasonably agree that it has, because this is the first video that Jocelyn Savage has done. And all of this R. Kelly drama and the litigation and the lawsuits, I don't recall her ever coming out to make a video. Leave your questions, comments below if you know of other videos where Jocelyn Savage comes out and talk about this R. Kelly situation or her relationship with R. Kelly, besides this one. So I think there's a bona fide and an actual strong claim for emotional distress. She's obviously stressed out about this. You've dragged her into the court of public opinion, and you're saying all these crazy things. And because of that, not only is she stressed out, but now she has to come out and basically defend herself in the public's eye, right? So the claim of emotional distress is pretty strong in my opinion. The other potential claim that Jocelyn Savage has against Patreon is appropriation. Appropriation is when someone uses your image or your likeness to make money. I think Patreon is definitely going to be liable for appropriation, even though they stop the distribution of the funds, even though they terminated the account. I think that they are still liable for appropriation because they allowed the account to be created without verifying the person's identity. And because of that, money was taken. There was a conspiracy to actually get money from the general public who wanted more information about this R. Kelly trial and Jocelyn Savage relationship with R. Kelly. Patreon allowed the imposter or the alleged imposter to take in funds. It's a conspiracy. And whether Patreon likes it or not, they were an unwitting or willing or unwilling, or witty or unwittingly took part in this conspiracy. And I think that they're going to be liable for this because they knew or they should have known that this account should not have been allowed to be created without verifying the person's identity. So that's basically it. Leave your questions, comments below. I want to hear from you. Let me know if you think that any of these are legitimate claims that Jocelyn Savage can file in against Patreon. I think these are pretty good claims. I think if she actually goes to file them, I think she'll definitely win. And this really doesn't have anything, even though this surrounds R. Kelly, this really doesn't have anything to do with R. Kelly. It's really about Jocelyn Savage, right? So leave your questions, comments below, and let me know what you think about these legal claims that she could potentially make. And don't forget, like, share, and subscribe.